Hello, this is Haeju from Go Inside Global.
Hi, this is Haley Koo.
Long ago, Zen Master Baekjang Hwae said, if you do not work for a day, you shouldn't eat for a day. Even in his 90s, the master participated in communal labor with others, considering work itself to be a form of Zen practice.
However, with the development of science and technology, we have gradually distanced ourselves from nature and from physical labor, which has caused many problems. At the Green Gulch Farm Zen Center, people are taught the preciousness of all life and the importance of nature through the process of working.
Nestled in the beautiful Golden Gate National Recreation Area in San Francisco is the stunning Green Gulch Farm Zen Center. We will now meet Furyu Nancy Schroeder, the abiding abbess of the center, via Zoom.
Founded in 1962 by Shunryu Suzuki Roshi and its American students, the San Francisco Zen Center is one of the largest and most influential Zen centers in the West. It comprises 3 locations: the Beginner's Mind Temple in San Francisco, the Green Gulch Farm Zen Center, and the Tassajara Zen Mountain Center. The Green Gulch Farm Zen Center, established in 1972, is 27 kilometers north of San Francisco within the Golden Gate National Recreation Area. It combines meditation practice with farming and gardening, embodying the principle of Zen and farming as one. Through mindful labor, practitioners deepen their understanding of interdependent origination. Furyu Nancy Schroeder, who became the abiding abbess of Green Gulch Farm in 2014, has been a vital presence at the Zen Center for over 40 years. She has taken on numerous leadership roles and actively supported programs for marginalized communities, including people of color, the LGBTQ+ community, and interfaith groups. She was inducted into the Marin Women's Hall of Fame in 2008 and served on the board of the Marin Community Foundation for 8 years, beginning in 2010. The San Francisco Zen Center is one of the largest Zen centers in the West. Even Apple's founder, Steve Jobs, practiced there. Since its founding, it has provided a space for many people to practice.
Green Gulch Farm, affiliated with the San Francisco Zen Center, cultivates a farm and gardens on an expansive 115 acres, about 140,000 pyong. It is incredibly beautiful, and we will now meet Furyu Nancy Schroeder, the abiding abbess of Green Gulch Farm Zen Center, via Zoom. Hello.
Hi, Venerable. Welcome to BTN. Welcome to Go Inside Global.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for inviting me to join you today.
Yeah.
I would like to send a very warm greeting to all of the Korean Buddhists and to the BTN viewers from our Buddhist Sangha here in California.
Oh, thank you so much. So, are you joining us from Green Gulch Farm Center or San Francisco Zen Center?
Well, actually, I recently moved this year to a new center that we have. It's not a temple, but it's a community for our retired priests, and there are about 20 of us who now live here together with another 200 people who are inspired by living in it's what's called a Zen-inspired senior living.
Oh,
and it's up
wonderful.
Just north of San Francisco. Yeah, it's very nice. And I have this lovely new apartment that I just moved into recently. So,
but today I think we'll be talking more about Green Gulch.
Green Gulch, yeah, and San Francisco Zen Center.
Right.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you practiced for many years at the San Francisco Zen Center, which was founded by Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, an American Buddhist. Was that where you first encountered Buddhism and decided to ordain as a monk?
Actually, my first encounter with Buddhism was in a bookstore in Jacksonville, Wyoming, which I think you all, if you don't know Wyoming, it's cowboy country, what you call the West. In America, it's kind of the Wild West. So lots of ranches, lots of cowboys, lots of horses. And I worked in a bookstore, and during the wintertime, I was looking through the books, and I looked at this section on spirituality, which was mostly yoga, and then I picked up a book called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. I turned it over, and there was a picture of Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, which was so amazing to me to see a face that was so kind and present.
Right.
And I would say that that's when I really became drawn to Buddhism. I read the book, and then some years later, I was working in San Francisco, and the person I was working for lived at the San Francisco Zen Center.
Oh.
So he invited me to come for dinner, and basically I never left.
Oh,
you know,
wow.
I just
You never left.
Literally.
Yeah, literally.
Well, I think ordaining is a major life decision. What motivated you to make that choice?
Well, I had been a resident at the Zen Center for several years. I arrived when I was 29, and it was very popular, let's say, to ordain for the resident students. And I thought, well, I want to do that. You know, everybody's doing that. But the teacher at the time, the abbot, said, well, when you're living like a priest, then I will ordain you.
Oh.
And it took me a few more years to understand what it meant to live like a priest. You know, to live for the benefit of others and to take on that vow, the bodhisattva vow. So after meditating with the community for a number more years, I asked again, and that time I was told, yes, you may ordain priest.
That's great.
And so I've been a priest for over 30 years now.
Over 30 years.
30 years.
Wow. Very good. And then, so the San Francisco Zen Center was founded by Shunryu Suzuki, Zen master. And could you tell us about the master Shunryu Suzuki more?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. It's such a good question. He had actually died before I arrived. So he was gone, 6 years before I came to Zen Center. So I think the best way to know him isn't so much like his biography, but by reading his teaching.
Okay.
So I would suggest that anyone interested in knowing him would read Zen Mind Becomes Mind, which I'm pretty sure is translated into Korean. And the other language. And as the Buddha himself said, don't look at me, listen to what I have to say, listen to the Dharma. So I think that's true of Suzuki Roshi too. He was a wonderful teacher, and his teachings continue to inspire all of us. And, so that would be my way of introducing people to him, would be to say, just read his words. So I actually ordained with his Dharma grandson. So my teacher, Tenshin Anderson, was a disciple of Zentatsu Richard Baker, who was a disciple of Suzuki Roshi. So I'm great-grandchild of Suzuki.
Okay, grandchild. So I think the Zen master Shunryu Suzuki, he has founded the San Francisco Zen Center, and I think that was the very early age of the Buddhist practice in the U.S., right? It was like 60s. Yeah,
it was a very interesting time. I was born in 1948, so I grew up in the 50s, and then I was a young woman, went to college in the 60s when the hippies were very active in America, in the Bay Area, especially San Francisco. A lot of hippies went to San Francisco. So I would say the culture was very young and very interested in all kinds of spirituality, like Hindu and yoga and Sufi and so on. So there were a lot of traditions coming into California from Asia, and one of them was Buddhism. So it seems like, I feel as though Buddhism actually was already there because the Japanese congregation in San Francisco just celebrated their 90th year.
90th? Wow.
As a temple, so they've been there a very long time. And Suzuki Roshi came to be the teacher for the Japanese congregation. So because the hippies and the beatniks before them were interested in spirituality and had really read quite a bit about Zen, when they heard that there was a Zen master in San Francisco, they went and found him. And they went and studied with him, and eventually they asked him if he would come and live with them and found a temple, which he did. So that's how the San Francisco Zen Center began, was when they basically invited the Japanese teacher to come from his temple and form a new temple in San Francisco. It's a little bit sad because I think the Japanese congregation was hoping the hippies wouldn't stay around because they were a little unusual. And I think it was a little bit of a problem, that we couldn't just all practice together. And still, Zen Center is primarily Caucasian. Right. It's a problem that we notice and we realize we have issues around race and diversity, and something we try to address. And I think all of you are aware of those issues.
Right.
It's worldwide.
Yes.
So I think it may be some generations before we have a truly diverse community. And I think Suzuki Roshi would be very happy to know that that's happened.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, yeah.
So I understand that the San Francisco Zen Center is made up of 3 centers. Could you introduce the unique characteristics of each one?
Yeah. Well, as I just mentioned, because I'm now living in what's kind of a 4th center, which is the newest one.
Yeah, the 4 centers.
And this new one is not a temple in itself, but it is, as I said, it's Zen inspired. And in the center of our retirement community, there's a Zendo.
Oh,
and
very nice.
So a lot of the residents, there's about 200 of us.
Yeah.
Not everyone, but a lot of us go to Zendo every morning to meditate together, which is lovely. And so I'd say the other centers, which I've lived at all of them over my years of practice. There's the San Francisco Zen Center in San Francisco. It's called Beginner's Mind Temple, and that's where Suzuki Roshi lived and where he died. And then while he was still living, they founded Tassajara Zen Mountain Center, which is in the mountains, very rugged mountains south of San Francisco, and that's our monastery. So all of us who've trained for any time at Zen Center go for some years to train at the monastery. So I did that for 3 years. Some people stay for 4 or 5 years. So that's our training temple, and it has 2 90-day angos every year, practice periods. And then in the summer, it becomes kind of a resort where people can come as guests and swim and be in the mountains and eat vegetarian food and learn about meditation. And so that's the monastery, Tassajara. And so there's Enso Village, where I am, and then City Center, Beginner's Mind Temple, and the third one is Green Gulch Farm, which is where I lived for the last 25 years. And it's a very beautiful, as you know, visited, very beautiful farmland, very much on the coast. It's about 100 plus acres of land, farmland, as about 8 acres we farm. And it opens out into the ocean. So if you walk through the farm, you end up at the beach, near beach. And so we've been growing vegetables there since we acquired the property. And we also have a guest program. We have a guest house, and we have a bakery, and we have a kitchen. So when the students come to be in residence, they're given work assignments in one of the areas, either the farm or the bakery or the guest program or the garden. And so it gives them all an opportunity to put Buddhist principles into practice, to actually have practical work that they can do along with the meditation. So those are our 3 temples: Green Gulch, City Center, Tassajara, and now Enso Village.
Right.
Oh, very good, nice. Very good.
So it's a really tight-knit community.
Yeah. And also it might have various programs in each center. So could you explain about the programs that you offer in each center?
It's really kind of naturally, organically happened that the Green Gulch tends to serve families and children. So we've had a vibrant children's program for many years. Wow. COVID made us reduce that for a while, but hopefully it will come back. But we've had many, many years of working with children around Buddhist teachings and their families. We also have the farm. So in the summer months, we invite farm apprentices to come, and they spend 6 months working on the farm and growing produce and delivering it to the markets. And then as a result of that work, they receive practice periods for the balance of the year. So that's our hope, is that they'll want to enter the practice periods after they've done the farm work. And the city center is more of an urban temple. So right now they're remodeling the temple. They've received really generous donations to put in modern elevators and bathrooms and so on. So the city center is going to be turning itself more toward urban training programs, maybe frequent sessions. I'm not quite sure how it will all work once they reopen, but right now they're still in construction. And Tassajara, as I said, is the monastery. That's where we do traditional. You would be very familiar with that, Tsunema. This kind of practice that we do in the monastery. Silent, most of the day silent, lots of meditation, and so on. So lots of ritual. They do. Each one of them has a kind of different quality and different offering.
Very good.
Right.
And while practicing, people are familiar with the Zen Buddhism, or do they do different kind of meditation? They might have a lot of doubts about that, because Zen is a little bit different from other meditation practice.
Yeah, well, as you know, Vipassana meditation has been very popular in America, and probably imagine in Korea as well.
Yes.
And so a lot of folks have been studying with Vipassana teachers who went to Southeast Asia and brought back the meditation primarily, not so much ritual, not ordination. They're really more of for lay people, more of a kind of secular Buddhism in a way. And it's wonderful. I mean, people do long retreats, silent retreats, and so on. I think Zen has a little bit more to say about the sutras and a way of viewing, maybe I don't want to say purpose of meditation, but what underlies our meditation and what is it we're looking for if we're looking for anything. So basically, I think beginning to study the Mahayana Sutras and beginning to learn something about the Zen ancestry is, for a lot of people, it's kind of exciting, but it's also like confusing. It's so easy to understand these teachings. So I think it's one of the challenges for us as teachers is to put it into language that is accessible for people.
Yes.
Not go too fast. Right. And start with basics. So, of course, we teach Four Noble Truths, the Two Truths, the Eightfold Path, and that sort of thing, the Four Foundations of Mindfulness. So we give basic teachings from the Pali Canon, and then we also teach about the Mahayana Sutras.
I see.
Very interesting.
Integrative Buddhism, right?
Yeah. Try to meet people where they're able to be, and we also teach bread baking and farming and gardening.
Yes.
Those are important too. So the San Francisco Zen Center is not only focused on meditation and practice, but also engages in a lot of social activities. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, I would say mostly it's individuals who have their own, particular things that they think are important. That for some it's the anti-war movement. For some it's gay rights. So the community as a whole doesn't really take a position. I think we're not actually, I think we're kind of required to be somewhat neutral, even by law, as a nonprofit.
Right.
So don't promote, any particular candidates for anything, any political programs. But we do have lots of conversations together about social issues. Right. And certainly, we show up for the Gay Pride Parade, and we show up for anti-war interfaith anti-war activities. And we also have been very active in local efforts to feed the homeless people, to provide hospice care, and to help support families that are struggling in our neighborhood. We host 12-step programs for people struggling with alcohol addiction, and so, as I mentioned, have special programs for kids. So we're very busy. We're trying to, there's so many things that need to be done in society, and we're pretty small, but it's our heart is in it, to do the best we can with what we have.
Great, thank you.
I'd like to hear more about the children's program and also caregiver meditation program. I heard that. So could you be a little bit specific about that?
Yeah. Well, we many years ago, I was actually on the board of Zen Center. I don't know how many years, it's several decades now. We were asked by one of our practitioners if we would consider starting a hospice. And so we did. We had a building in San Francisco, an old Victorian, and we repurposed it for hospice. And we had, I think, 5 hospice patients at a time. And then a number of us went over and trained in how to be with those who are dying. So we out of that grew the Zen Hospice Training Program, which is now gone on for many, many years and has trained many people to be hospice volunteers in hospitals or in some smaller places where people are dying. So our hospice program began during the AIDS epidemic. So there were a lot of young people dying, a lot of young men dying of AIDS. And so there was a real great need to have a lot of people involved in doing hospice work. And I think we're very successful in helping with that, and it's still happening. The demand isn't as great as it was, but it's still something we do. So caregiving, with people who are in need is really an important aspect of our Bodhisattva vow. And it's certainly also true for people with mental health issues, which is very common. I don't know how it is for you all in your monasteries, but a lot of people who have serious mental health issues will show up at church, or they'll show up at the temple. And so we weren't very well trained in recognizing various kinds of illnesses people were suffering, but we've learned a lot. We've learned how to understand that these are mental issues. They probably need medication, or maybe they need therapy or something. So I think we're a lot more sophisticated than we were in our hippie days, thinking that, we didn't know so much about the kinds of troubles that people can have in their lives. I think we're much better now at being able to find the right professionals to help when someone is having some stress. I'm not a trained mental health worker, but I know a lot of them, and I know how to put people together with treatment programs and so on.
That's very nice. Right. So what kind of meditation do you do for them?
Well, Zen meditation, I think, I don't know if it's much different than yours, but one of the things I like about Zen meditation is basically they hit the bell and then you sit there.
Yeah.
And then they hit the bell and you get up. So
okay, simply sit. Yes.
And in between, all kinds of things happen that, each person experiences a tremendous amount of what's going on in their own minds. And of course, in our tradition, I don't know if it's true in yours as well, but because of Bodhidharma facing the wall, we face the wall. And so people are facing the wall and meditating. And one of the things we say to them is, I can assure you that what you're seeing during your meditation is not on the wall. It's in your mind. And so people little by little begin to understand how much of what they are experiencing is coming from their own thinking, and how they imagine the world is, and how they project their ideas on the world. So that's all primary teaching, The world is a creation of your mind, from the Dhammapada. So I think we try to help people understand the source of their suffering is not their wanting reality to be different than it is. And so we try to help people to be more realistic about themselves and about what they can ask of others, and about skillful means. So I think that meditation itself is really that quiet, silent sitting. Talking about it is where the richness of each person's practice develops, because I could go to my teacher and bring all of my concerns that came up either in meditation or in communal work, and he could help me. And I do that with my students. I'll listen to them, and then I have some ideas about what they might do, and they come back again, and we talk some more, and then over time you can see them begin to mature.
Yes.
So it's a long process.
Right. And is it same with the children's program? So do you teach Zen and also do other activities for children?
We do. We do very meditation for the children. I usually about 10 minutes is about what they can do for the younger ones anyway. Teenagers can do a longer, we don't worry so much about them, but the little ones are very restless. And I remember introducing meditation to a group of 6th graders. They're probably 10 or 11. And after they were sitting, one little boy raised his hand, and I said, well, how was that to them? And he said, no one has ever asked me not to do anything before. It's wonderful.
Whoa.
And I thought, aha. So children really understand how valuable it is to learn to be quiet, to learn to just be still, you know, and I think they're very good at it. You know, if you help them, guide them, I think they have a natural affinity for quiet, and for mindfulness. You know? So I like working with the children. I think that's where our great hope for the future, of course, is going to come, is from the kids. And yeah. So
yeah, great, wonderful. And also, it's very wonderful to see so many female practitioners and leaders being active in the U.S. And do you think there is an even greater role for them to play in the future?
I hope. I know you do too. We hope so. I know the community of do you consider yourself a nun?
Yeah,
or,
I mean, I'm a monk, but we need to talk about that it's nun, right?
So you're monastic, and you're female monastic,
yes.
And as am I. I mean, I'm not a monastic. I'm a monastic when I'm in the monastery. I'm a priest. When I'm not in the monastery, I serve in the function as a priest. That's how I think about it. So I think what's kind of sad to me right now is that there are a lot of men being drawn back to Zen. And originally when I came, it was predominantly men. And then at some point, Suzuki Roshi was very open to having women join the men in the monastic training, which I don't think had ever happened before anywhere, where the men and women practiced together. So we all went to the monastery together and practiced together, and families were welcomed, so children were born, so that after the 30 years of, for example, at Green Gulch, lots of children have been born and raised there from their parents who met at Zen Center and married at Zen Center, and their children have children. So it's kind of an experiment in being kind of an inclusive community that's a little bit hybrid between mysticism and more of a village or family living. So we're still working on that, and we keep noticing that again, lots of men are being drawn to come. And I think the rigor of the monastic practice is very appealing, as is the military to a lot of people. They find that very helpful to their development. And I think for women, it's a little challenging, because if you're imagining having children or you're imagining starting a career, they come to Zen Center, but they don't stay. So that's a concern of mine. Are we going to become more of a lay practice community? That may be okay. That may be just fine. But then we'll have to figure out the curriculum, and we'll have to figure out how would a lay person train to become a teacher, so that we don't just have people who don't have somewhat of a depth to their training. So these are all big questions that we're looking at all the time and trying to figure out about the future, which we can't predict.
It's very important to think about.
Very important, but very difficult. I mean, like for her, you know, she's a nun and I'm a lay practitioner, so definitely we can't have the same kind of training.
Right. And I had the good fortune in just the coincidence, because I chose as an ordained person not to have children. I wasn't in a partnership at the time. And I thought, well, and I was sad. I thought, well, I'm not going to have children. That's kind of sad. You know, I always thought I would, as a young person. And then when I was 45, there was a little baby that needed to be adopted who was not well. She had actually she had HIV. So she's okay having me say that. But so my partner and I, who was a doctor, HIV doctor, adopted this little girl. And so when at 45, I had a baby. I was like, oh my goodness, you know. I didn't really know much about how to take care of a baby, but I learned pretty quickly. And she's 31, and she's doing beautifully. And the treatment for her condition has just been so much improved, and she's
so great.
healthy and lovely young woman. So, you know, I think the possibility of raising a child and also doing monastic practice, I just was kind of lucky that I could do the first one first and then have the child. But, you know, that's just my story. I think other people are not quite sure how to make that work for them. Yeah.
Definitely karmic fate.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Karmic fate.
Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Yes.
So for us, we aim to propagate Buddhism through this program and show that meditation can be practiced by anyone, anywhere. We would be really honored if you could guide a brief meditation for us and the Korean Buddhist and BTN viewers.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think the first thing I would say is to straighten your spine. Find balance in your lower body. If you're in a cushion, some of you, then you have cross-legged posture and you take good care of your lower legs. If you're in a chair, that's just fine. Have your feet flat on the floor, and then let your spine kind of grow up out of your base. Kind of like a young tree growing up, and then allow your shoulders to drop back and relax. And then the head is balanced on top of the shoulders in such a way that it's not pulling on your shoulder muscle. So you kind of bring your head up and back. And so as our teacher said, your eyes are horizontal, your nose is vertical, your ears are aligned with your shoulders, and you're breathing gently through your nose. So the next thing that we do, and I'm not sure about in the Korean practice, but we put our hands in the cosmic mudra. So the cosmic mudra, I'm just going to show you a little bit, is having the fingers of your right hand, the fingers of your left hand are on top of the fingers of your right hand. And then you make an oval shape with your fingers and your thumb tips touch gently at the tip. It's called the cosmic mudra. And that mudra sits down, not exactly resting on your lap, but in your lap, comfortably, maybe resting a little bit against your stomach, so that the thumbs are at the level of your navel. That's the location for the cosmic mudra. And one instruction we'll give to people is to imagine yourself breathing in and out of that opening. So the cosmic mudra is some idea about your connection to the vastness that surrounds us and that we are. So our big mind and our small mind, as Suzuki Roshi called them, are connected through this opening. So we're like children of the universe. This is our connection to that truth. And then as we meditate, we give ourselves permission to gently just inhale and exhale, very gently, allowing the air to come all the way in as you inhale, to allow your abdomen to extend a little bit. And then as you exhale, just gently through your nose. And then inhaling again, and gently exhaling. And if it helps for your concentration, you can count. I prefer to count on the inhalation. So as I inhale, I count 1. And completely exhale. And on the impulsed inhale, I count 2. 3. And when you get to 10, you start over at 1, so you don't get too distracted by counting. And so then we just basically sit together quietly, just sit together for a few minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was lovely.
Yeah. Very focused.
Even a short time really helps, doesn't it?
Yes,
it's amazing.
Definitely.
Yeah, even a short time, very helpful. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
We always need a minute to get back.
Yeah, it's always hard. We need to get back to our interview. You know, in Korea, historically, the Korean monks also pursued the integration of meditation and farming. So can we see the practice at Green Gulch Farm in a similar context? So it's a kind of a, Zen traditional practice.
Yeah, growing food for ourselves and also for the community. We do sell at the farmers market. It supports us, as does the guest program. So we have a guest house, and we have a beautiful Japanese joinery guest house that was built by a master carpenter who Suzuki Roshi had sent to Japan to study Japanese joinery. And so the building has no nails. It's a 2-story, beautiful octagonal building. And so that brings revenue. And then we have conference program. We have a conference center. And so all of these things were built over the years by the students who came and learned carpentry, learned farming, and learned mechanics and so on. So it's really, someone once said, you're just babes in the woods, you know. You don't know anything. I said, no, we don't, but we learn. We want to learn.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah, we learn. And maybe they can survive in any place because they learned a lot.
That's right. That's right.
So it seems like we could learn the preciousness of life and come to embody the principle of interdependence and understand that all living things are connected, like people and nature. Would you agree with your experience living there and staying there?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's just right. It'd be hard for you to avoid knowing that.
Right.
You know, seeing the truth of dependent co-arising.
Yeah.
And also transiency. And also, you know, that you really do need to get over yourself and care about others. You're just not that important. But caring for others is really important. So maybe you just do that, you know, give yourself an opportunity to be a person who is giving and who's generous. And I think those teachings really help people turn their lives around, you know, literally toward how can I help you? And I don't think our culture, at least our culture, doesn't teach that. You know, we're very self-centered, and you know, what are you gonna? How are you gonna make money? How are you gonna be rich? How are you gonna be famous? That's sort of the thing that children are given, and I think we're offering something different. Yeah,
that's true.
You know, yeah.
You mentioned that, you know, there's a small road that leads to the beach. Do you think that Green Gulch made an impact on the natural surroundings around Green Gulch?
Yeah, that was a good question, because I think, you know, farming does disturb the natural environment, of course. You know, I think the early monks didn't do that. That's why they went beg for their food, because they didn't farm.
Right.
And I think that was something that came perhaps in China or in Tibet, and places where begging wasn't okay. I mean, I think it wasn't part of the society. So, you know, to grow your own food, and a day of no work is a day of no food, that was something that evolved as the Buddhism went into different cultures, where the ideas about how to live and the availability of food was really different. So I feel like we're always adapting. Buddhism can adapt itself to the environment that it comes into, and like water to different shaped jars and stuff. So I feel like the farm, it used to be a cattle ranch, and the cattle did a lot of damage to the land. So then we started farming, we began tilling the soil and putting compost on the soil and bringing it back to where it grew beautiful vegetables. So even though it's not the natural environment, it's a very healthy environment for the plants and for the little creatures in the soil. And, you know, we do harm living beings when we take the tractor and till the soil. So we often pray, you know, we acknowledge the suffering and that we do in our farming. It's very hard to avoid, as careful as we are. But still, the preciousness of life is being respected, and including our life that requires us to eat living things. whether it's vegetables or animals, we do require to live. We need to eat things that live. So we remember that, and we offer our chanting to remembering. And so I think helping us to not take for granted food and respect the process of growing food is a tremendously develops people in a really wonderful way. You can see them kind of grow up over a few years. These young people are kind of confused, and they get more and more clear about themselves and about their values. So So I appreciate the farm, and I know that there's a cost.
Yes, yes. And I think there are many people from all around the world who want to visit your farm, the Green Gulch. So can foreigners visit there and practice together?
Yes, and in fact, many of our senior students and senior teachers are from what we call foreign countries, other countries, England and Germany and Sweden and Ireland and China. So we've had people come from all over the world, and we do have a foreign student program. And I was just looking on our website to make sure if I answered this question that you could find it on the website. You can. So if you look at the San Francisco Zen Center website and put on the little question mark, foreign student program, it takes you to the foreign student program and tells you what steps you can take in order to come as a resident on a visa. And then there's a long-term visa.
That is even a visa? Wow.
Even we can get the visa from your center.
Well, the initial visa, which I think is 6 months, is given. I think anyone can get that. But then to stay longer for like years, we have resident visas. We can get resident visas through our institute. Yeah. So that's been a wonderful thing for us to have foreign students coming.
Oh, wonderful.
So yes, they're more than welcome. In fact, we're very happy to have
So our viewers.
Right, I know. Some people
you should go there.
So we ask all our meditation teachers the same question on this program. Unfortunately and fortunately, we live in a time of material abundance, yet many people suffer from depression, anxiety, and stress. So what, in your view, should we practice daily to lead a happier and healthier life?
Well, you're not going to be surprised to hear me say meditation.
I kind of knew. That was the answer.
You both know that. Yes. I think you're listening to that it's really good to sit down quietly. Even in this short amount of time we sat there, I felt was really, really helpful. So just sit down without a book, or without anything, without talking, and just sit up straight and just be in a quiet place for a while. By yourself or with other people who are being quiet. It's such a gift to our life to do that and not to skip it, not to forget that that's important. So a kind of daily, if possible, practice of silent sitting would be extremely important. And then also beginning to study about who you are and what you're made of, and how these wise teachers from so many centuries of meditating and thinking about life have come up with some wonderful ways of understanding the human being. So I think studying something like Suzuki Roshi's book and other teachers, Thich Nhat Hanh, the Dalai Lama, studying the teachings of the great masters of our era is, of course, I recommend that highly. And I also know from my early years as a young woman who had a great deal of anxiety, and fear was my, probably my most common feeling of fear. I also went into therapy, and I often recommend to students, it's really good for you to work through your personal issues that are still there from your childhood. And, we have a lot of therapists in America. I think it's pretty common for people to go into therapy. But I found it to be extremely beneficial. I had a wonderful therapist. So I suggest to students who are basically continuing to bring up their childhood issues, talk to a therapist, begin to work on some of these issues and sit meditation and study the Dharma. And I think you'll be so busy, you won't have trouble, having all these other problems. You'll have plenty to do in your studies and your work and your practice as someone once said, we're so busy in our practice that we don't have time to be bad. We don't have time to fall into states of woe. So there's some truth to that, even though I'm being a little bit light about it. But I do think, and of course, if someone really is suffering depressive states or any kind of suicidal ideation, anything like that, it's really important to have medical help.
Yes, yes.
And I would never suggest to somebody that they use meditation when really what they need is some medication and to help them stabilize. So whatever resources are out there from skilled people, I think if we help guide them toward those resources, I think that's our job as healers, as teachers.
Yes.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time today and all of your wisdom.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your insights. Thank you.
That was such a great pleasure for me as well. And both of you, I hope you have a very good rest of the day and rest of the year.
You too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And we will see you soon.
Yes.
Hopefully. Hopefully.
Green Gulch Farm is a place filled with beautiful nature, sacred labor through hard work, and the teachings of the Buddha. I would love to visit Green Gulch Farm someday and experience the diligence and practice through working with my own hands.
I agree. By combining practice and work, I feel that both body and mind can become healthier, and that this will allow us to practice with even greater joy. On Go Inside Global, we introduce meditation centers from all around the world. Today, we introduce the San Francisco Zen Center and Green Gulch Farm. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.